Hi, I'm attorney Renee Osipov, and I assist parents, guardians, and students who are having issues surrounding special education or 504 plans and the accommodations within those plans. So, in this video, I'm discussing what are the responsibilities of a teacher regarding a 504 plan and those accommodations that are granted to a student. So there are four major stages of a 504 plan. So first, requesting the 504. Second, getting evaluated. Third, creation of the 504 plan. And then the fourth would be then implementing the plan itself. And an educator or teacher has responsibilities at each one of those steps. So we can start with the first one. So that's just requesting a 504 plan. 504 plans can be requested either by an educator, so the teacher, and I'm saying educator, but I'm really meaning in this video specifically the general education teacher. They're going to be with the student the most. They're going to have the biggest sort of picture of the needs of a student within the educational setting. So initially, requesting a 504 plan can either come from the parents themselves if they feel like the student is struggling and they're needing accommodations, or the teacher, the general education teacher, may see that there is a need for this child or student to have accommodations, so they can initiate it as well. If they see that the student is struggling, they do have a responsibility to reach out to the parents and then also request evaluation for the 504 plan. Then at the second stage, when the child is being evaluated, teachers have responsibilities there as well. Normally they share data and observations. Data, what I mean is grades, attendance, sort of anything where there's like data tracking. So for example, if we're talking about reading, this could be fluency, assessments, comprehension, phonemic awareness, things like that. The teacher would have data, so they're responsible for sharing that. Also just observations. So if they see that the child is having trouble focusing or completing long tasks, that is something that they would want to share with the group when they're assessing if that child actually needs accommodations. Then as we go to the third step, creating the 504 plan, the teacher can use those observations and data and their experiences with the student to help be an active member on the 504 plan team. So they can suggest accommodations. If parents or other members are suggesting accommodations and the teacher doesn't agree, they can also voice their concerns. But mainly they're just a valued member of the team because, again, like I've said, they're with the child the most in the education setting. And so they have great insight into what needs to be implemented and what accommodations or services really need to be offered for that student to succeed. And then lastly is the implementation of the 504 plan. So this is probably the teacher's biggest responsibility. So 504 plans are actually codified in federal statutes, specifically the Rehabilitation Act, Section 504. That's where the whole plan gets its name. But in there, it states that the 504 plan and the accommodations are there to protect a child from discrimination for their disability. So if a child has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits a major life activity, so something in the classroom, it can be physical and it can be mental, but there is a disability, there's a diagnosis there, and so that child is therefore protected by federal law. And this is actually enforced by the Office of Civil Rights. So when accommodations are granted in a 504 plan, everyone must comply. These are not guidelines. These are not suggestions. So it really is the teacher's responsibility to understand those accommodations that are written in the 504 plan and then to fulfill those accommodations. I have heard lots of stories where specifically students with anxiety are able to leave the classroom if they need to self-regulate or take some sort of medication if they feel maybe an anxiety attack approaching. and the teacher will refuse to let that student leave. If it's written in the 504 plan as an accommodation that it's at the child's discretion when they are able to leave the classroom, then the teacher is responsible for complying. They must allow the child to leave to go get the help that they need. So this is not, like I said, a suggestion. It's the teacher's responsibility to comply with this. Also, if the teacher is gone, it's their responsibility to supply any substitute or admin or staff in the classroom with a copy or understanding of what the 504 plan is and those accommodations, so that that child is protected even if that educator is not there. Also, it's the teacher's responsibility to not discriminate, or also to not retaliate, I guess that would be a good word, for this child having a 504 plan. So again, some examples: if the teacher is discussing with other members of the class or saying blanket statements about this specific student with the 504 plan and their accommodations, that's really violating that child's civil rights. They have a disability, therefore they cannot be discriminated against. They have this protection, which is the 504 plan, and it needs to be implemented. Teachers also have a responsibility as well if the 504 plan doesn't seem to be working. So maybe the accommodations that were granted in the meeting no longer serve that student. They're not helping. The student is still struggling. They're having substantial impairments. Then the educator has a responsibility to go back to the 504 plan group and express those concerns and discuss maybe the accommodations need to be changed, or maybe they're not needed anymore. Or maybe new things have come up where a student has new needs or additional needs. And so then accommodations would then be created. The 504 plan can be amended so that student can get the services that they need. So again, just to summarize, the teachers have responsibility at every step of the 504 plan. They can also request a 504 plan for a student if they see they're struggling. They need to supply data and observations at the second step when at the evaluation process. At the third step when they're creating the 504 plan, teachers need to be an active member, suggesting and contributing to what they feel the best accommodations would be for that student to thrive in the classroom. And then lastly, the implementation of the 504 plan, the teacher has a legal duty and responsibility to comply with those accommodations to protect that child from disability or discrimination, and also just protecting their civil rights. So if you'd like more information, our contact information and websites in the description below this video, and feel free to reach out and we're happy to help. Thanks.